language. No matter what anybody tells you, words and ideas can change the world.
You write your first draft with your heart. And you rewrite with your head.
Seize the day.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the very first, that's right, the pilot episode, as they say on network television. The first episode of the Writers Showcase. This is where we gather a group of writers together and we answer some very interesting questions. And we also take questions from you who may be watching or listening to us from the comfort of your very own home. Going to be discussing writing, the writing process, maybe some of our favorite books, maybe some of our favorite characters. And if you have any thoughts on any of these pieces of subject matter, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Do not forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends. And if you're watching this live or on a replay, thank you so much for being here. This is going to be a lot of fun. And this was actually the brainchild of our first guest. So please welcome him to the stage. No stranger to And I Quote Studios or And I Quote shows, because he's been on more than 5. Please welcome David V. Mamina from the great state of New York. David, good to see you, man. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on yet again. I love your shows, man. I love watching them and I love being on them. So you're just so much fun to be around. And I love that introduction. That's a nice choice right there.
I know, right? We do our in the words of our good friend 007, we aim to please. So it's good stuff. And thank you to our good friend Case, who puts all our intros and backgrounds and thumbnails together, aka the Dutch Star Wars guy on YouTube. Give him a subscription, follow his channel. Doing a lot of great things over there. Case, brother, I love you. Thank you so much for this great intro and everything you have done to help this channel grow in more ways than one. Also joining us on this panel is someone who is no stranger to adventure, no stranger to getting numerous accolades to their mantle. I mean, this her debut novel has been out for some time, and it's won so many different awards in the audio drama category already, maybe winning some more awards as you go throughout the course of time, maybe even a New York Times bestseller. I don't know. But please welcome Brina Williamson to the stage. Brina, welcome in. How are you?
I'm good. Just excited to be here.
And a little terrified. No, it's cool. We're very happy to... That's a gift she expressed to us in the green room earlier this evening. But it's great nonetheless. It's great to have you here. And welcome. Please feel free to, just chillax, relax, just feel the vibes, feel the love of reading, the love of writing, the love of books. Everywhere you look, it's going to be wonderful. Also joining us is someone who's got a few words to express on this matter. I'm going to be Frank. Well, hold on a second. Can I still be Garth? No, anyway. Frank is here. What's up, Frank? Good to see you, man. How are you?
What's going on, Ryan? Glad to be here. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday to you, good sir. It's good to see you. And Nate from the Men's Adventure Fiction Discord is here. He says, the gang's all here. Yes, we are, Nate. It's good to see you, too. Hope everything's well in your neck of the woods, Nate. Give our best to everybody out there in the great state of Pennsylvania. Also joining us is someone who has a very unique background, a very unique skill set, and also a lot of facial hair that seems to twirl its own mustache. Please welcome a best-selling writer, I guess, if you want to call him that. I don't know. We just call him Grayson. Hi, Grayson. How are you? Welcome in.
Hey, guys. What's up? My mustache has definitely got a mind of its own, though. It does its own thing. There's no control in this thing. It woke up like this.
Oh, geez, there probably isn't. But Grayson, it's good to see you nonetheless. And we thank you all for being here. This is going to be a lot of fun. And once again, if anyone in the comments or the chat has any questions for our esteemed panel of guests, let us know in the chatter box or the comments section down below. We really appreciate it. And thank you for joining us. With that out of the way, David, since this was your brainchild, this was his idea to bring this show and to bring all these wonderful people together as one, because there can be only one Discord, but there can only be one show. With that being said, sorry, that's a Highlander quote from 1980 something or other. David, in your mind, what makes a great book?
What makes a great book? I think a great book is, you know what? I guess I should start by saying this. I'm going to tell you what a bad book is first, because you have to have reference. And a bad book is one that is not, your style of book. How many times have people said, I don't like to read. I don't like to read books. I don't really do that. I like to watch things on TV or I like to play video games. The thing is, you're not reading the right books. All right. So what makes a good book is it's got to capture you. It's got to be your escape. That's what makes a great book is the escape. And if you don't feel like you're in a different world, if you don't feel the emotion, if you don't feel excitement, if you don't say, "Oh man, I can't wait to get into those pages again," then it isn't the escape you need, and that's okay. It was just a bad choice for you, and then you go and you find a much better choice. But I think everyone can find a great book. I think also a great book is one that stimulates your imagination. So if the book invites you to fill in the blanks of certain settings and how people look and what they sound like, I think it's our job as the writer to set the stage, to make sure the narrative is sound and engaging and exciting. But a good book will also invite the reader, like I said, to use their imagination to fill in the gaps, to make them feel like this is sort of theirs as well. So I think a great book is imagination, um, and the escape. That's my thought.
Ooh, good stuff. I'm digging it. Just out of curiosity, though, if you could be frank with us, Frank, what in your mind makes a great book?
I mean, I think it's very simple for me. The best thing what makes a great book great is a book that will grab you by the throat, pull you within its pages, and refuse to let you go until the story is finished. And by that, I just kind of mean that a story that really you kind of forget you're reading, a story that pulls you in so well into its characters, into its world, into its story that you lose track of time, that you kind of forget where you are, what you're doing, and what you've done beforehand. And I think one of those books, when I say pulls you down and doesn't let you go until the end, that doesn't necessarily mean nonstop action. It just means whether it's pacing, whether it's character development, whether it's structure, everything just kind of flows. It looks effortless. It looks seamless. Like the story just goes from point A to point B and so on and so forth. You can follow the characters. You start to know these characters. You start to really get invested in what they're doing. And I think that's just kind of really, to summarize it, something that really can kind of grab a hold of you and entertain you, because I think that's the whole purpose of books, whether it be novels or short stories. Which since I'm primarily a short story writer, it's the stories that grab you and that refuse to let you go.
Good stuff, man. I can dig that. This is getting deep. It's getting deep. Just out of curiosity, though, the one who's got more awards than we care to count, Brina, what in your mind makes a great, not a good book? No. What makes a great book in your mind?
So I would definitely agree with what's already been said, but I also think it's very subjective. So for each person, it's going to be different. For me, what keeps me engaged in a book is primarily to do with characters. It's kind of like, if I don't like the characters, I can love the setting, but I'm not going to really want to stay in that world because I don't really like the people I'm engaging with. So I think it starts with characters, and then you can kind of build from there. And you need a good world, you need a good story and all that stuff. But if you don't have good characters, it's going to kind of fall apart. You're not going to want to stay there. The analogy that I've always sort of thought of is like, you can go anywhere with like your best friend and it will be fun. But if you're going to the best place in the world with somebody you don't like, you're not going to enjoy it. So you start with good characters, and of course you want a good world and plot and writing and voice and all that. But you start with characters, and they drive the plot and they drive the story, and they keep the reader like wanting to stay with those characters because they just like them so much.
Good points. This is why we give her all the accolades, all the awards that are going to be hanging up on her mantle. More awards than the average Oscar winner is ever going to get. So it's great stuff. This is why we pay Brina.
It's character driven for
it
me.
is, it is. But this is also why we continue to pay Brina the non-existent big bucks in this studio. So outside of that, and outside of us winning the lottery, which is going to happen anytime soon. No, it's not. But just out of curiosity, because the chances of winning that are like 1 in a billion, hypothetically, I think. I don't know. Didn't Robin Williams say something about that in Good Will Hunting? Probably. Yeah, Chief, I got the winning lottery ticket right here. Oh yeah, what's the jackpot? 12 million. I don't think it's going to cover your tab. But anyway, Grayson, I'm just curious. What in your mind makes a great book? Any thoughts?
Oh, I have all kinds of thoughts.
Oh boy, I don't know if I want to hear this or not, but go ahead anyway.
Oh, you want to hear this? You definitely want to hear it. No. I kid. Well, I can't disagree with anything that's already been said. You know. But for my money, first I'll tell you what I think is a terrible book, and I'm definitely not targeting the most famous contemporary fiction writer or fantasy fiction writer ever. Definitely not targeting him when I say this. Definitely not. But if it takes a third of your book to begin your story, then I'm not interested. It should take a third of the first act to begin your story. So if your story moves at a snail's pace, it can be a big book. But if it moves at a snail's pace, it loses me almost immediately. I cannot keep up with the story that has no motivation to move. So what makes a good book in my mind is a very simple definition. Is it well paced? Is it competently written? It doesn't have to be perfect. But did you just vomit this out on your keyboard, or did you put thought behind this? Is there skill involved? Are your characters good? Are they strong? Can they stand up? Is your plot well developed and well thought out? Does this feel polished? Does it feel professional? And is there any heart? Is there any spectacle? Is there anything in this that's going to resonate with me? I'm not necessarily the kind of guy that differentiates between high literature and schlock. I think everything matters. I think, simple stories to those more prosaic and metaphorical, good for the soul kind of stories all matter and have their places. But for me, it really does boil down to, did you put earnest effort into this, or were you just trying to cash in? And is your plot strong? Do you have a sensible, well laid out story? I can suspend a lot of disbelief, but if the story doesn't work, it just doesn't work. Your character's strong. And I think the bottom line for me is whether or not I enjoy it. If I feel like I'm wasting my time, I'll probably put your book down. So that's my answer. That's what makes a great book.
All right, don't worry. 10 points the Gryffindor. No, you're fine. You can keep being on this panel. You didn't ramble on like an incoherent. Never mind. I'm messing with you. Yeah, exactly. I'm messing with you, man, but it's cool. No, thank you, all of you, for answering that first question right out of the gate. So we kind of broke the ice here, a little bit of an icebreaker type question, but it's still a valid question, ladies and gentlemen. And once again, this is the Writer's Showcase, episode 1. Do not forget to like and share this if you're joining this live or what is known as a replay. Thank you for doing so. If you have any questions for our esteemed panel of guests, let us know in those comments. Let us know in the chat. We're more than happy to take those as they come in. Some people have already chimed in here. Let me see if I can bring this up for a minute. Nate says, man, these are some great thoughts. I'm loving this. Nate, we do the best we can with what we got, partner. So, I think we're doing I think we're off to a good start here at the races, right? I think we are. I mean, can't speak for everybody in the studio, but I think we're off to a good start by, having a bit of an icebreaker type question. But question number 2 goes to the field. And we'll start with Frank on this one. Frank, where is your favorite spot to write?
Oh, man. I think before I had my son, it would probably have been in my in this grand study you see behind me. Since he's been born, he's 3 years old. Everything just kind of everyone who's a parent or has experience with young children in the household can probably relate to the fact that you don't really have as much structure as you would like. So therefore, you kind of write when you can. You kind of write whether you have 5 minutes or 15 minutes, God willing, an hour. So for me, it depends. It really depends on the day. There is no real consistent routine for my writing. It can be on my laptop on the train into the city for work. It can be on my phone in the back of an Uber. It can be, in a small notebook that I keep for my travels, like if I'm with my family and have those little small pockets of time. I think in most cases, as someone who has a full-time job, someone who has a young family, someone who has a lot of other obligations outside of just work and writing and all those things, it really is just kind of you kind of roll with the punches as it is with life. That's really what it means, is that you're never, at least for me, I'm never going to have a perfect day. You know, the circumstances are never going to be ideal for me. And that's something that I've had to learn the hard way. And that's something that I've had to really accept, is that when you have a few pockets of time, your first inclination is to write. So it's just kind of, that's just kind of my answer. You know, it's just, there is no real solid routine. It's just that I write whenever I can, whenever I get a free 5 minutes and limited distractions. I will say, I am an early riser. So waking up around 4:30 in the morning tends to, give me a little bit more time before my family is up.
Gotcha. Understand. So we can just, so basically, if you have trouble writing, we could just blame it on the Munchkins watching reruns of Sesame Street and cool.
Exactly.
Yeah, blame it on the Muppets. Animal Cookie Monster has always been my favorite, but whatever. Outside of that, Brina, where's your favorite spot to write?
I have my little desk. I have art on one side, my laptop on the other, just my little corner. I can't really write with too many distractions, so I just have my little corner desk. That's pretty much where I do all of it. I can write on the go sometimes, but usually I need like my quiet corner. So just have boring answer. I have a desk.
No, it's fine. Except you got to remember one thing: nobody puts Brina in a corner. All right.
I put me in a corner. I like cozy corners.
True, but nobody, back in '87, nobody had the right to put baby in a corner, which means we can't put Brina in a corner. We just can't do it. So, and I think my good friend Patrick Swayze would agree. So outside of that, which is great, desks are cool. Having a writing pad or a computer and pen and paper on hand is always good. David, where's your favorite spot to write, man?
Yeah, I have to agree with what I've heard so far. Frank really laid out what it's like to be an author in a fast-paced world. You have to carry your laptop around. I carry it in my backpack. When you get a chance, set it somewhere, and if you have a moment to write and you're in the mood to write, go for it. I've written at work, I've written on the train, I've written in Starbucks. You write where you can. And if you do it the right way and you're in the story, you're in the book, and you're focused, things will happen around you, and you won't even know it. You won't even realize it's happening because you're in the zone. But to Brina's point, when I get a moment to myself and say, you know what, now I'm going to be able to write, I can choose what I want to do. I'll go to my office, just like she said. The lights will go sort of low. It'll be nice and cozy. And what I'll do sometimes is I'll put the YouTube on, and depending on where the scene is, I'll play the sounds. So you can get the black screen. I'm sure my writer friends here know what I'm talking about. If you're on a train, if the scene is on a train, you could easily get YouTube like 3-hour long train sounds. Or if you're out and the party is camping, you can get camp sounds. If it's around a fireplace. So that's my ideal place to have the immersion, so my reader essentially can hear the fireplace too. I like that a lot. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel invested as I'm writing. That's my answer.
So in other words, it's planes, trains, automobiles, and technology at our fingertips, ladies and gentlemen. We'll just keep that in mind as we roll along. Roll again, rolling, 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 rolling. That's what I heard in American Tail, 50 Goes West, which takes us back to way, 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 way long ago. But outside of that, great answer. Grayson, where's your favorite place to write, man?
My favorite place to write is right here in this room. I typically write, I'm a bit of a night owl, so I typically write around 11 p.m. to about 2 a.m. And like was said a minute ago, I like to put on soundscapes depending on what I'm writing. So, something in the 1930s, I'll put on city noises or jazz club music. If it's something fantasy, I'll put on battle music or dungeon music. It depends on the context, but I'll put on some sort of soundscape just to put me in the headspace. I like to drink hot tea when I'm writing. Something about it is just, stimulating. It gets my brain going the right way. I like low lighting, so I turn off almost all the lights except for a few ambient lights. Don't know what it is about that. Just again, puts my head in the right space. I can write on the go. I have written short stories and things like that in hotel rooms or at a Starbucks or wherever. But if I had my preferred way, it would just be very quiet, very cozy, dark mood, right here at my desk with my keyboard.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. And thank you all for answering that question. Now, some questions have come into the comments section, so we're going to bring these up one at a time and take them one at a time because we got some great thoughts and comments here. I got to be honest. Anthony Cruz has a question to the field. He says, "Who influenced you to write, and why did they influence you?" So I'll turn things over to Brina, if you don't mind. Who influenced you to write, or why did they influence you?
Well, actually, pretty much my family is a lot of writers. So I would say my family in general. And then some of my favorite writers, I have a bunch of Agatha Christie back there. I love her writing style. So authors, it would be Agatha Christie. And then real life people would be like my mom, my siblings. Like I have a bunch of writers in my family that influenced me to take up writing. So.
Keeping it in the family, I see. Interesting. Excellent, Smithers. That's excellent. That's great. No, but it's great stuff, though. Not to sound like a weird iteration of Mr. Burns back there for a second, but no, that is really good stuff. What about what about you, Grayson? Who influenced you to write, and why did they influence you?
The people that kind of pushed me to start writing. I had a pastor friend who said that my posts on Facebook were eloquent. He thought I'd make a great writer. My mother-in-law is a journalist. She said she thought I would make a great writer, and my wife, who listens to my insane ideas, told me that I should take some of these ideas and actually write them down. And I had no confidence that I'd be able to do that, but a couple years ago, she persuaded me to give it a try, and I had a book written a couple weeks later, and I was shocked that that came out of me. As far as who influences me as a writer, I love J.R.R. Tolkien, the world of Middle Earth. The Hobbit is probably my favorite book to this day. Love C.S. Lewis. Grew up reading stuff like Louis L'Amour in middle school. Really influenced by a lot of movies and TV shows, so like The Rocketeer, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Batman the Animated Series. That kind of stuff was a big influence. But I think The Pulse, definitely. Things like The Shadow, Doc Savage. Especially the writings of Robert E. Howard and Conan the Barbarian, as he's come to be known. He wasn't originally called Conan, but that's what he's come to be known as. Or he wasn't originally called Conan the Barbarian, I should say. He was just Conan. But Robert E. Howard has a number of characters I found fascinating that I really enjoyed the writing style. So my influences are wide-ranging and diverse.
Fair enough. So basically, it's like 31 flavors. Go to Baskin Robbins down the street. We got you covered, man. All good things. Nothing wrong with Baskin Robbins at 2 a.m. Yeah, we all need late night ice cream sometimes. Anyway, I digress, though. David, who influenced you to write, and why? Why did they influence you?
That was a great question, Anthony. And the answers have been amazing. I'm so glad that he actually asked that question, because I don't think enough people ask that. Where does the writer get born? When is the author born? And for me, it was in high school, and it was my senior year, and it was my ELA teacher, my English teacher, Mr. Sullivan. I always tell this story. This is such a great opportunity that he saw in me. I would write whenever I had a chance, just pen and paper, writing stuff down. And he would come over to my desk after I was finished with my work, and I'd start writing. And he finally just said, "What are you writing there? I want to read it." He'd read it. He'd give me notes. He'd say, "This is really unbelievable. Your imagination is so great." And it was just that kind of push from an educator who saw something in me and made me feel so good that, I used to write when I was a little kid too. When I was in middle school, I think a lot of us in this group had done that at some point. Your imagination is just burning from the inside, waiting to come out. And once you find the avenue to do that, it's a great thing, but sometimes you need the invitation by the universe, and the universe has hit us all in different ways to get started. And for me, it was my teacher. It was simple as that, and that's how he got me going.
Mm. Great story, man. I love hearing that. It's good stuff. Absolutely good stuff. What about you, Frank? Who influenced you to write, and why did they influence you?
Yeah, no, awesome question. For me, it's very simple. It goes down to one, a handful of writers. Charles Beaumont, who anyone who's a fan of the original Twilight Zone will recognize that name. Rod Serling, who is the original creator of the Twilight Zone. Harlan Ellison, one of the great American short story writers of fantasy and science fiction and horror. Richard Matheson, and Ray Bradbury. Like those are kind of like the Mount Rushmore of writers for me, who really inspired me, especially Bradbury. You know, Bradbury has a very simple technique for writers who are just beginning, which is to write 52 short stories back to back, write a short story a week for a year, basically, to kind of get all of that stuff that's burning inside you out there. And I kind of took it to heart, and that's pretty much how I started. And the second part is to the short story format, which is really I don't want to say a dying art, but it's a lost art. It's a lost art form. Most writers, when they want to write, have aspirations to write novels. Most writers would say that the novel is kind of more in vogue over the short story, when short stories were, quite frankly, one of the more dominant art forms or mediums for storytelling, not in just the United States, but throughout the world. And it's a format that it's wonderful to play in because you don't have a lot of time. You don't have a long word count. It's not a long commitment. You can pretty much write a short story a week, if not a couple of days. And it's just a wonderful art form that I would love to hopefully bring back. And it's just one that I love to practice in. I've written over 100 short stories to date, and yeah, that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me writing. I've written plays, 2 musicals, sketch comedy, published a collection of short stories, and it's the short story is what keeps me going. It's the format that got me into voraciously reading. It's the format that keeps me writing, and it's the format that hopefully when I'm old and gray will be the last thing I fully dedicate myself to.
Man, I'm about 99 short stories behind on that one. I've only written one, so I'm a few miles behind on my 10 million steps to greatness. Unlike Frank here, who's already accomplished it so well. Boy, I got some homework to do, folks, when this show is completed, don't I? But listen, no, all honesty, all kidding aside, great answers by each and every single one of you. And Anthony Cruz, thank you for that brilliant question. Outstanding. Question. Thank you so much, kind sir. Thomas's writing journey has something he wants to pose to the field. So I'll turn things over to David on this one. What inspires you to write, and what is your muse?
My muse, you know what it is? Ever since I was a kid, I used to love playing video games. I used to love to read comic books. I used to love to watch any kind of movie or show that would get me, get my creative juices flowing. So, I was raised in the 80s and the 90s, and that was a really special time. A lot of different ideas were created during that time. You can watch it, you can play with the toys, you could read the comic book versions of them, you can see them on the screen. It was just a perfect storm that got me saying, I want to create too. I want to do that. I have ideas. And just as much as you'll play with your friends out in the street or in the park, or it's the same thing. We all have that that craving to create, or to be a part of something greater, right? And that's my muse. That's what inspires me to do it. And I probably speak for everybody here when I say that when that itch starts to take over, and it's there's an idea that says, hey, wouldn't this be cool? What about this? Doesn't this hit you a certain way? It's in my mind, it's in my heart, and I start outlining it. I start writing it on my phone a little bit, and I sort of put it away and I think about it. And if it starts to bloom, it starts to get bigger and bigger. I know I'm onto something, and that's kind of how it works. So I'm inspired by the world. I'm inspired by little ideas. That's what it means to be a creator. You know, it can come from anywhere. So, but I love fantasy. I love the escape. So that's my motivation.
Oh, I can dig it, brother. I can dig it. Grayson, what about you? What inspires you to write, and what is your muse?
I have an overactive imagination, so that actually is a driving inspiration for me. But I also think that it's kind of asking the same question: what inspires me and what's my muse in my mind? I'm in love with the idea of storytelling. You know, when I was younger, I wanted to be an actor, maybe a stage director. I read a lot of Shakespeare when I was a kid. Just the art of storytelling does a lot of really cool things for humanity. You know, it relays deep truths. It can make us laugh. It can make us cry. It can teach us lessons. It can give us a thrill. It can scare us. It can help shape our culture and our society. Or it can just be a really cool escape from the mundane or the painful or the normal. So just the fact that there's so much power in telling a story, so much power in just Stephen King describes it a great way. He calls it telepathy. I'm taking my words and putting them in your head. I'm taking my thoughts and putting them in your head. And I think that's a really cool way to describe it because it's very powerful. I'm taking a part of me and sharing it with you. And hopefully, in the sharing of that, it will help us bond, but it also help change society for the better. And we've seen that happen with stories. All these stories that endear us and endure over time. All these things that have just crept into the cultural consciousness and have changed us for the better through the power of storytelling. You know, I mean, if you're religious, think about it. God chose to communicate with the world through a book, through a story. There's incredible power in this. So for me, just the nature of telling a story is what inspires me to write, and it is my muse.
I hear you, man. I hear you. What about you, Brina? What inspires you to write, and what is your muse?
Um, I get inspired by so many things. Also, I just want to say hi, Thomas. I know him. So I feel like just almost anything will inspire me. I'll see something at the park, or one line in a movie, or just I don't know. I just get inspired by everything everywhere. So yeah, it's just it'll be one little thing that creates a seed, and I'll get a whole idea from just tiny little things, a background character in a movie or something like that. To kind of go back to my muse, I don't know. I think different things will kind of become a muse for me depending on what story I'm writing. Sometimes sometimes it'll be a picture that I did that I didn't have an idea for initially, but then yeah, I kind of get an idea from it, and then that just image is sort of sitting on my backdrop, and I use that as my inspiration or my muse to write the story off of that one image. Morona was a lot like that. I had a kind of mock-up cover and character that inspired the story because I didn't have a plot. I just had the character and kind of her initial art. But yeah, different things. I don't know. There isn't one thing for any of it. It's just a seed here, an idea here, an image there, and it'll spark an idea, and I create off of that.
No, fair enough, fair enough. So in other words, it's like Albatross Air, a fare from here to there. That's from your friendly neighborhood rescuers down under a criminally underrated animated film from the Disney Renaissance of 1990, I want to say, which, if I'm not mistaken, Case, that turns 35 this year, which means we got to do a 35th anniversary watch along for that masterpiece of a film from Walt Disney Pictures. So, Case, if it's not on the schedule, don't worry, we'll add it there pretty soon. Sorry about that. Frank, what inspires you to write, and what is your muse? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything that I can really say that hasn't been said already. So I'm just gonna read this quick quote from excuse me. I'm going to read this quick quote from one of the most prolific pulp writers, H. Bedford Jones, who was a Canadian-born American author. of over 200 novels, 400 novelettes, and 800 short stories. And it just summarizes pretty much what everyone has said already in just his beautiful way, in which he says, his need for hunger and love satisfied, man then seeks to create, being fashioned in the image of God. And if he can make his creative work supply his needs, if he can make his imagination pay his bills, he is in the seventh heaven. And I think ultimately that's pretty much what I think a lot of folks on the panel, including myself, are kind of digging at, is that we have this insatiable need for narrative. And I think that is a human quality. I think that is not, I don't think that's just unique to writers. I think writers have this unique ability to kind of pick up the pen and go forth and have the confidence and the audacity to say, yeah, I can tell stories, whether it's filmmaking, whether it's music, whether it's theater, whether it's novels, whatever it may be. There is this burning hunger for us to express ourselves and express the human experience and illuminate the human condition through the use of narrative. Grayson said it beautifully about, just how the great creator himself chose to speak through narrative, chose to express himself and his greatness through the written word. And I think I definitely think that's something that is kind of really inspiring for me, as well as just kind of, I was born an only child. I was I was always alone, but never lonely, because my imagination kind of filled that void of different stories, different characters, different settings, all these fun things. But I think, to echo everyone's point, is that because we all share in the ultimate narrative, we have this compulsion to watch stories, to listen to stories, to read stories, and to tell stories. Not that it has to be in a book, but you go into the office, you go into work on a Monday morning, and everyone asks, "How's your weekend?" Well, let me tell you, and you start telling off that story. And I think there's nothing more human than to have this common dialogue of self-expression through narrative. So that's just kind of what I feel on what inspires me as a writer in terms of my muse.
Appreciate you sharing that with us, and appreciate all of you for sharing your response to that. Great questions, everybody in the chat. And apparently, Brina has a lot of BFFs because Thomas Writing Journey just happens to be one of them. And then Thomas goes on to say, hello. So, he's saying hello to everybody. Hi. Hello, Thomas. Hi. Sorry, that's my... I think I've had too much water to drink tonight, Thomas. I'm so sorry. But anyway, this is the Writers Showcase quote channel. Don't forget to like and share this. If you have any questions for this esteemed panel, let us know in the comments or the chat. If you're joining this live or on the replay, thank you so much for doing so. Nathaniel Hummel, a gentleman who's the co-founder of the Men's Adventure Fiction Discord, has a question. Oh my. He says, do you guys have a story that you feel you have to tell over all the others? Or are you pretty happy to tell just whatever story comes to mind, Brina?
I have a bunch of stories that I really want to tell, and I've written notes for them, but they're so important to me. I want to hone my skills a little more before I tackle them. So there's a few that are kind of on the back burner that I won't necessarily talk about, but yeah, I definitely have a few stories that they're ones that I really, really want to tell. And I'm writing the ones that I am excited to tell and can right now, but I want to hone my skills a little bit more before I tackle the ones that are really important to me.
Understandable. So a little bit more training in the Jedi Academy.
Yeah, I need more practice.
Yeah, more practice with the lightsaber. Okay, that's fair. Don't worry, Obi-Wan Kenobi or Master Yoda or Qui-Gon Jinn will take good care of that for you. No worries. David, what about you? Do you have a story that you feel you have to tell over all the others, or are you just pretty happy to tell whatever story comes to your mind, David?
I think to answer that, I like to open my mind to different ideas, different concepts of things that are really exciting to me, and I'll sort of put that down somewhere, like I had said before, and I'll go back to it and say, does this still feel like something I want to, put my mind into, put my time into? But I've been writing this is actually 20 years now that I've been writing. My first book was published in 2005. This is 5 years out of high school, and I learned a lot from that. And if there's anything I learned is don't write anything unless you feel that fire in your heart, and that's going to keep it going, because no writer wants to just write because they have to. They're on a deadline. I'm writing for the sake of writing. Everyone here knows that you're writing because you believe you have a story to tell, and it's burning inside you. You got to get it out on the page, you know. And other stories I've had that I felt really cool, but not something I could have made into a novel per se. So I do have one short story compilation book. I'll have to live 3 lifetimes to catch up to Frank. I'm not a great short storyteller. I got like 8 or 9 short stories in that compilation, which I'm really happy with. But yeah, that's a really good question too. A lot of people don't think about that. Writers don't just write whatever comes to their mind all the time. That would be like a free write, which I think is really fun to do. I would encourage everyone to try free writes, but a free write could turn into something else. I have a friend of mine who writes. He does Dungeons and Dragons campaigns, and one of those campaigns, it was like, wow, this is so cool. I should make it into a story, and he did. There's a lot of instances like that. So yeah, I think it depends.
Depends.
I was going to comment on. I think all writers, the things that they write are the ones that speak to them the most. Like, I have all kinds of stories, and I'm not publishing or necessarily, like, I might write them, but I'm not publishing them. The ones that I published are the ones that are important to me. But yeah, I think most writers have tons of stories that they could tell, but they pick the favorite ones to publish and write.
Good point. And thank you for responding to that. That's good. And you raised your hand, like we should here in class. That's good. Listen, we're all learning on the fly here with this first episode of the Writers Showcase, but we're having a lot of fun doing it, regardless of whether we're raising our hands to, excuse me, can I reply to that person's answer, sir? So it's one of those things where, Grayson, I'm just curious, do you have a story that you just feel like you have to tell over all the others, or are you just, happy to tell whatever story comes to mind?
Man, my brain is so sporadic. I just tell whatever comes to mind most of the time. But I think the kinds of stories I tell have a similar trajectory. I think that's true of all writers. Like, you could never ask Stephen King to write like erotic romance. It would be the worst erotic romance you've ever read. He's a horror writer. Sometimes he writes detective fiction under a pen name. I think that all writers have an avenue they're trying to travel down, but as far as specifically, do I think I have one story I need to tell above others? No. But like they said a moment ago, the good ideas stick around. The good ideas kind of rise to the surface, and they're the ones that you scoop up and you run with. So, I have attitudes, trajectories, and similarities in a lot of my stories, but I don't feel like I have one specific story that I must tell before I die. And I don't know that the great American novelists felt that way either. I think they just they were inspired to write, they wrote, and it was just so good it took off. I don't think anybody that set out to write a great novel actually ever wrote a great novel. Instead, it's the people who were just in love with writing. They were the ones that found the most success. So.
No, I gotcha. Understandably so. What about you, Frank? Do you have a story that you feel you got to tell over the others, or are you just pretty happy to tell whatever story comes to your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I kind of am more in line with what Grayson just said. I'm not. Any story that comes to mind, I don't find to be precious. Meaning that I'm not. There are some people who think that their books or their stories or their children. No, thank you. I already have one. But for me, it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, the story is what I feel most compelled to write in that moment. I write it. I may publish it. I may share it on Substack. I may put it in a collection. I may send it to a magazine. I may just keep it in a drawer or on a Google Drive. It doesn't matter to me, because to me it's the act of writing is the spiritual practice. It's like going to church. It's like praying. It's the act of in itself that is its own reward. So I don't feel compelled to tell one story over the other. For me, it's just if I can write, I do. And sometimes I'll toss a story even before I finish it. There might be a story where it's like, oh, I feel this idea, but I think it could be told in a different way, and I'll just toss it and I'll just start all over again with a whole different concept and a whole different starting point. But for me, it's just kind of, there's always an ongoing manuscript of one story idea that just either hasn't really materialized or that it's on its way to its own development. But no, I'm not partial to any specific idea. The ideas are the easy part. I don't have the problem with the ideas. It's always, can the execution meet the idea that I formulated in my head? That's the real challenge.
Point taken. Man, these questions are just coming in hot, and they're really, really good. So who was it? It was Nate. Well done, Nate. That was a hard one, man. Anthony Cruz says, amazing responses by all of you. Cheers to all of you. I am drinking a nice cold Sapporo, if I'm saying that correctly, for this amazing video. So cheers to you. Anthony, cheers to you, man. Seriously, you got some good questions, and everyone gets free drinks and hors d'oeuvres in the backstage area of our studio tonight. So well done, fellas. Well done. We're doing an excellent job tonight. And by the way, Anthony, you got another one you want to pass along to the panel, so I'll toss this one to the field. His lovely wife wants to know, what genre is most interesting to write about, David?
Oh, wow. Well, for me, I've always been into dark fantasy and gothic fantasy because I'm a nice guy, and a lot of people are shocked when they see what I write. I don't write anything really that gruesome or anything, but I like to admit that the world is a dark place. It can be a dark place, and it should give you courage to know that there is hope in the world and that there are heroes that can guide you through it. And there are complex heroes and anti-heroes and villains. And I think that's very inspiring to me because fantasy is great when you add in the real. And I think that's when it sort of pulls you in. It's like a bridge. So a bridge of the real to take you into the fantasy component of it. And that's my favorite genre. I like to feel a little scared. I like to read a book or play a video game or watch a show that is fantasy, but they're not afraid to take you there to that dark place. And you say, oh my gosh, I really care about this hero. This is really scary. Is this person going to survive this? And I just like the feeling of closing a really good book like that. That's always been my genre.
Well, the world's truly dark with what's going on in the world right now. Have you seen how bad inflation and prices have gotten out there? It's ridiculous. Don't even get me started, man. Outside of that, Brina, Anthony Cruz's lovely wife wants to know, what genre is most interesting to write about?
Okay, so for me, I would say my favorite genre is probably mystery to read and write, just because I like the puzzle of it. I like the intricacy of weaving a plot and all that sort of stuff with mysteries. But I would say the most interesting genre to write is probably the one I haven't written in yet, just because it's exploring something new and it's a challenge. So it's always changing for me. It depends on what I'm kind of experienced more in mystery and pulp and stuff. And so the most interesting genres are ones that I haven't tried. So.
Oh my, interesting answer. This is getting really good, I gotta tell you. But all that wonderful stuff aside, Frank, what genre is the most interesting to write about?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always been these little Twilight Zone style stories, which really are just a melting pot of science fiction, fantasy, and horror in a more contemporary setting. It's where you take a seemingly ordinary person and you drop them into extraordinary circumstances. And sometimes they change, sometimes they don't. And it's those little twisted tales among fantasy and horror that I find attractive to write. Um, I think it's just fun to kind of I don't plan out my stories in advance. I just kind of have a character or a plot point or a starting point in my mind, and I just kind of go, and then by the end of it, I'll discover, oh, this is more horror, or this is more fantasy, or this is science fiction, or this is satire, or anything of that nature. So for me, it's anything that can allow me to drop into a contemporary setting and just play it. A lot of my stories also dabble in a blend of different genres at a time. So yeah, it's a little bit of everything. It's kind of like it's a buffet of a buffet of fantasy, horror, and science fiction.
Buffet, this, that, and the other. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet. Forget about Starbucks. We're going to Sizzler. But that's taking us back a couple hundred years. Sorry, I don't think they exist anymore. And if they do, I haven't seen any of them on the streets. But anyway, Grayson, what what genre is the most interesting to write about from your standpoint?
Uh, I'm an action adventure guy. Um, Usually a period piece or a fantasy. Specifically, my favorite genre to write in is sword and sorcery, so it's similar to dark fantasy. Kind of the angsty cousin, I guess. Sword and sorcery has a lot more similarities to like a Western or to Indiana Jones. Just instead of, Nazis, it's cult members and evil wizards. And instead of the Ark of the Covenant, it's, the shrunken head that can open a portal to another dimension or something crazy. Yeah, and of course, your hero is going to kill all of them before it's over with. He must, or you don't have a story. So that's sword and sorcery. But I write stuff in the 1930s. I write stuff in the Renaissance. The novella I'm working on right now takes place in modern day, and it's the one story I'm struggling with the most because I think something about writing an action adventure story, either that's fantasy where I can literally do whatever I want to do, sky's the limit, pure imagination, or it's something like the 1930s or the 1920s where I might have to do some historical research to make it accurate, but it's so romanticized and we're so far removed, I can still more or less get away with whatever I want to. When it's in the here and now, you lose a lot of suspension of disbelief, and I lose a lot of imagination as a writer. And in contrast to Frank, I plot my stories out. So for me to have plotted out a whole book and I'm still struggling with it on the back end of writing it, I lose inspiration there. Uh, so for me, I've dabbled a little bit in some mystery stuff, and I tried to write some more cerebral things, short stories here and there. But I think I've stuck with action adventure, specifically the sword and sorcery stuff, because I have not lost interest in it, and I'm always ready to write it. I'm like a tube of toothpaste. If you squeeze me, toothpaste comes out. Well, if you squeeze me, these stories come out. So, it is what it is. I'm not ashamed of it. I love a good action adventure yarn. Anything with a hero that does the right thing. That's what it does it for me.
Giddy up, man. I can totally dig it. Once again, once again, it is the Writers Showcase. Don't forget to like and share this. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments of the chat. Thank you to everybody who's chimed in so far in that chat room. Oh my gosh, these questions are way better than anything I could have answered on an SAT back in the day. So just brilliant stuff. And by the way, Thomas's writing journey says, very, very good. Nice answers, everyone. Hey, we do our best, Thomas. These esteemed panel of guests do their best to answer these questions. So, yeah, well done to everybody. Fantastical. Thomas's writing journey, unfortunately, has another question. So I'm against my better judgment. I'm going to bring this up on the Titantron. We're going to answer this question. And if we do it well, great. And if not, well, then we chose poorly. So in that case, the question is there a particular part of life that drives you to write? And what exactly is it, Brina?
Oh, I don't know that it's a particular part of life. It's just I'm a creative person. I can't help it. I can't help but come up with ideas. So I have to write them. Drive me crazy if I didn't. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a specific thing that drives me. I mean, I would say wanting to put more stories out into the world, because I have to feel like if I'm craving these stories and I'm not finding them, there's got to be other people who are looking for the same sort of things that I'm looking for. And so it's like, okay, well, I have these skills. I can create art. I can create stories. So I guess I'll be the one to write the things that I'm looking for. And hopefully somebody else is looking for the same thing I'm looking for. So just getting them out there.
I gotcha. Understandably so. Grayson, is there a particular part of life, life, that drives you to write, and what exactly is it?
That feels kind of like a loaded question. Maybe not a
Tough
loaded
one to
question.
answer.
Yeah.
A lot of
I should probably play the Jeopardy theme song, but I don't have access to it in my studio, Grayson. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Frank can sing it, maybe.
Probably.
Do.
It is a tough question. I mean, at the risk of getting too personal, a lot of things go into pushing me to write. One of them is that I feel like I've been a creative person forced into a bottle for most of my life, trying to find an outlet, and I finally found one. Part of it is, I'm building a family. I have a child on the way, and I desperately want my child not only to see my legacy, to believe that dad did really cool things, but also I want my kid to realize that he can do really cool things. He's not restrained. If he has a work ethic and he's creative and he sets his hand to do it, then he can do it. I believed for a long time in my life that I was tied up and could not do certain things, and I realized that for the lie that it was. So that's one thing. And another thing was even more personal. I had to spend some time in a therapist's chair for a few years of my life. And one of the things that soothed and made that more bearable was writing in a journal. And it was around that time that I started writing fiction. So writing fiction is therapy for me. It very much just keeps me centered. And if I'm having trouble with someone in my real life, if I'm mad at my boss or a family member, well, that I can just make them a villain in my story and have them get hit by a train, or have my hero cut their head off and show it
Oh,
to the
boy.
village to let them know that the monster's dead, and I don't actually have to hurt anybody. So that's wonderful.
Okay. Well, we got this chopper over here for you. And where'd you get it from? It's Zed. Well, what happened to Zed? Zed's dead, honey. Zed's dead. So
That's right.
there's a little Pulp Fiction for you, folks. I rewatched it for like the fourth time within the last 2 weeks. So something's wrong with me if I'm watching Pulp Fiction one too many times. Maybe not. I don't know. But Frank, is there a particular part of life that drives you to write, and what exactly is it?
Yeah, I mean that's very easy for me. It's my personal war against the clock. It's which is a little bit morbid, memento mori for fiction writing. But I mean, it's trying to get as many stories under my belt and out into the world where I can share it before I eventually plot, before I eventually my face hits the keyboard of my laptop. Doing what I love to do, which is make stories and all other stuff. I don't. That's the ultimate deadline, right? That's really the thing. That's the driving force. Is I've always been the type of person that wants to do everything, and that truly believes that I can do as many of the things I put my mind to. And it's really that's the driving force. It's like Captain Hook and the crocodile. That just has the constant ticking in the back of him, because he knows that we're only on this wonderful thing called life for a very short period of time. And to Grayson's point, also it's also legacy. My son recognizes my own when he comes into my study and he sees my published collection of short stories. He can point that out, and he knows whose book that is. He knows that his dad wrote that. And he's known that since he was he would first be able to recognize and speak So yeah, that's always the case for it. You know, I don't really have anything else other than that. It's just like all right, the clock is ticking, folks. How many words can we get on the page today? How many books can I put out? How many stories have I finished? Because we're not here. We're only here for a short amount of time. So that is really the ultimate motivation for anything that I do creatively or artistically.
My goodness. Bold statements from all of our guests here on this panel. And it kind of reminds me, because the word legacy has been mentioned a lot during the course of this question. So I'll point one thing out. So for those of you who watch something known as professional sports, whatever that is, there's a former professional football player. He goes by the name of Ray Lewis, played for the Baltimore Ravens, because I live in the state of Maryland, so I should know who this guy is to a point, even though I don't watch sports, because I like to read books, okay? Get with it. But anyway, Ray Lewis once said, leave your legacy, because every day is a new day. Every moment is a new moment. So, like, you know, you just got to go out there and show that I'm a different creature now than I was 5 minutes ago. So, you know, you got to leave your legacy, man. So I got to bring up some Ray here because, you know, I'm in Maryland. He's a Maryland staple. So you got to give some love to the sports heroes of Baltimore in the state of Maryland, where I'm, you know, from and where I'm currently living. So thank you, Ray. You got some great speeches on youtube.com, #not a sponsor. But hey, we're airing on that network. So it kind of goes hand in hand, does it not? Appreciate that, though. And then Thomas's writing journey goes on to say, I am loving the honest answers. I appreciate all of you. In the words of G.J. Khaled, I appreciate you. So, is it nice to be appreciated once in a while? I think it is, quite frankly. You know, it's one of those things. Oh, boy. Gotten through a lot of hard questions tonight, haven't we, folks? I mean, I'm just the moderator. I don't even know why I'm here. I feel like Frank can host this show with his eyes closed, quite frankly. But, you know.
Not as well as you, sir. You're doing a fantastic job, I think.
Sure. Can I come back next week and do it all over again? Probably. That means I still have a job. Great.
Frank is the professor of pulp.
He
He absolutely is.
I mean, for a very specific reason. Let's not kid ourselves. And for those of you wondering what the frack is going on here, this is the Writer's Showcase exclusively on the Anti-Quote channel. Don't forget to like and share this with your closest friends. If you have any questions for our esteemed panel, let us know in those comments of the chat rooms. And if you're watching us, live or on a replay, thank you so much for doing so. With that being said, great questions, great answers. I do have a few more we'd like to get through on here, but in the meantime, since we've answered some great questions from the people who are chiming in within the chat, which we thank all of you for doing so, by the way. Let's see. Am I missing a note here from producers? Dutch Star Wars Guy has a question. Dutch Star Wars Guy, aka our good friend Case, who designed that intro we saw at the top of the show. We're going to get to that here momentarily. But before I get to that, I want to get us, you know, take a bit of a deep breath, take a sip of our favorite beverage, whether it's tea, Earl Grey, or, you know, coffee, or, you know, sarsaparilla, or a vodka martini, shaken, not stirred, whatever it is. We're going to take a bit of a breather, and we're going to share with you something that's going to get us, you know, to return us to the mood of, you know, writing books and reading books and exploring these different aspects of writing and interacting with the people in the chat rooms. And the Dutch Star Wars Guy, we're going to come to you momentarily, but first we have this.
He uncovered the Ark, survived the Temple of Doom, and discovered the Holy Grail. Now, one of the greatest film adventure series of all time is available for the first time in special edition DVDs.
You call this archaeology?
Discover how the ultimate action hero began.
I'm going after that truck. How? I don't know. I'm making this up as I go.
For the first time, only individual movies on DVD with bonus features, including interviews with Harrison Ford, George Lucas, and Steven Spielberg.
Any questions then?
Experience Indiana Jones like never before with the movies that set the standard for action and adventure.
Trust me.
See how the hero became a legend. Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Temple of Doom, and the Last Crusade. Coming to DVD May 13th.
You know, I mean, we're all fans of a certain character that encourages us to keep writing, keep creating, and keep going into the far reaches of adventure. So why not mention the OG, right, with Dr. Jones? You know, it just seems fitting, right? I mean, you know, I think it works. But with that being said, if you haven't seen those movies yet, the trilogy, check it out. It's on Disney Plus. Hashtag not a sponsor of this show. But if they want to be, call me, maybe, and it's available on DVD, Blu-ray, digital HD. You know the whole bit, right? We've all heard this before, but check it out. It's a lot of fun. So the Dutch Star Wars guy, aka our good friend Case, who designed that intro we saw at the top of the hour, he asks the question, not sure if it's been asked or not, but what is your favorite book, David? Of all the books in the world, and all the galaxies, and all the timelines, and all the dimensions, what is your favorite book?
Oof, that's a tough one. Favorite book. I'm looking at my bookshelf right now just to make sure. I think the one I'll probably go with is a book that probably no one knows here, but it's called The Child of an Ancient City. It's written by Tad Williams, and I actually picked this book up when I was in the Scholastic Fairs. Remember those things? I was in middle school, and I saw this book, and it had like this crazy vampire with big wings, and it was hunting this party, I think, that was trying to get from one part of the forest to the other because they couldn't go around it, and it was this caravan that was being hunted by this flying vampire. And what really happened was the men were trying to, because they couldn't kill it, they were trying to reason with it and to explain why they had to go somewhere. And the vampire, I guess how urgent it was. The vampire actually appealed to their humanity and sat with them around the fire and gave them one little test. If you can tell the saddest story, I'll let you win. And they all took turns telling a sad story. And he told his story about the child of an ancient city. It was him. He was the child of an ancient city who was turned into a vampire. And he couldn't help being what he is and all that. That book had me reading from the front cover to the back cover. I had never finished a book before. This was in middle school. So think about that. I had never finished a book that I had chosen, to writing a book in high school or wanting to write a book in high school. That book might have been the one that sparked something in me. And I still have it on my shelf. It's not the same one. I bought it for like $5 in a store. When I saw it, it just awakened something in me. And I said, maybe that was the spark for me. I don't know. I loved all, watching shows and, playing games and all that and doing my little free writes. I think that's the book that got me started. So that's my favorite.
Talk about out of left field, folks. But hey, this is a guy who writes dark fantasy, gothic stuff, and can go deep into the night and things that go bump in the night with the, Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense, or the BPRD for Hellboy. So, like, we're going way off the reservation, man. Game over, man. Game over. But anyway, that's going back to James Cameron's Aliens, which to me is the better of the two films that came out with Aliens. So that's just me. That's just me. I don't want to speak for everybody here, because some people are in the Alien camp, and that's fine because it started everything. And listen, you wouldn't have gotten there had you not gotten the first one, right? Because people love T2 more than they love the Terminator from '84. And me personally, I think the Terminator '84 is a masterpiece of a film, hands down. But a lot of people say, well, T2 is better. I'm like, but you would not have gotten there without the OG. So you got to give credit to the OG, son. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. Sorry, we're going to make this a movie discussion. We'll do that later. Brina, what is your favorite book? There's so many, I know. There is so many on that bookshelf back there.
It's so hard to pick favorites for me. Favorite movies, favorite books is so hard. So yeah, I was thinking about the question when I saw it pop up, trying to figure out what my answer is. I'm going to go with, it's one of my favorites, but it goes to the top of the list just for pure nostalgia because of how I was introduced to it as a kid, and my dad got it for Christmas and like read it to me, and like, so there's a lot of nostalgia to it. So mine is going to be The Hobbit. I don't know if you can see that. But yeah, I have a lot of fond memories in being introduced to that for the first time. I think it was one of the first fantasies that I ever remember reading as a kid. And so kind of read it. My dad read it to me as a kid, and then I reread it later. And so, yeah, that one has a lot of fond memories. So it rises to the top of the list. but I have tons of favorite books. It's so hard to pick.
It is, isn't it? It really is. It really, really is. What about you, Frank? What is your favorite book? I know it's hard because you got 50,000 bestsellers, you got 100,000 best-selling short stories, but outside of the things you've written and won numerous awards for, which shocking. But no, I'm just kidding. It doesn't shock me at all because you're great. What is your favorite book?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the one that kind of still lives in my memory because I remember the day I first picked it up and the first time that I really dived in to read it, and just kind of, I think David made this point earlier where it was really like the first time he remembers just kind of really being engrossed in the story cover to cover. And I gotta go with classic Casino Royale by Ian Fleming, the first James Bond book. It is from the first line, which I believe is, casinos always reek of cigarettes at 3 a.m. in the morning. Still like lives with me, and it just on a technical level, on a storytelling level, it just packs a whole punch, page after page after page. I could probably name like a couple more other books that I really enjoy, but that one still is one that I like to revisit from time to time because it's just great storytelling, very punchy, great pacing, and started the whole great character of James Bond.
Wow. So the gentleman, how did he die? Your contact? Not well. It's all right. The second is yes, considerably. Sorry, I got to give a shout out to DC, Daniel Craig, Casino Royale, one of the best films of all time. Great intro to James Bond too. That's a great, reboot of, the character and, continuing the franchise with a new actor, and Martin Campbell, no stranger to James Bond because he rebooted it back in the day in 1995's GoldenEye, and then he rebooted it again with DC, Daniel Craig himself. So Martin Campbell, we salute you. You're the man. Honestly. Casino Royale is a great, great movie. I haven't read the book, Frank. I haven't read the book, but I've seen the movie.
It's an excellent book. Highly recommend. But the movie's great. It's one of my favorites, actually. The movie.
All right. So I think you've convinced me. I think you made a really good sales pitch. Now I have to go back to that Wonder Book that I showed all you guys in the Discord. Let's see if I can find Casino Royale. And if I can't find it there, I'll find it on the Zon of Amazon something or other. I don't know. I'll get it somewhere. Someone gives me a holler and we'll take care of it. But still, Grayson, just out of curiosity, what is your favorite book?
I already told you at the very beginning.
Yeah. Well, remind the person
Hobbit.
who asked the question.
It's The Hobbit.
Okay,
and
so you
I have
basically
this
just cheated off of
attachment.
Brina's paper. That's cool.
No, I think I like to think she cheated off of me.
True.
But I have a better mustache.
Oh God.
For sure.
Lord.
I grew up with fantasy stuff. I grew up with King Arthur, and I grew up with Robin Hood, and I grew up with the very first video game I ever played was The Legend of Zelda, the original one, the gold cartridge one. My dad won a Nintendo at some competition at Walmart, and my mom hit all the garage sales she could hit, came home with a basket of Nintendo games, and I was the kid, so the super shiny gold one was the one I wanted to play, and it was Zelda. Been a lifelong Zelda fan ever since. So fantasy is just really embedded in me, and when I came of age and the Lord of the Rings movies started coming around and I realized they were a book series, I was like, well, better start with the first one and read The Hobbit. And I read it, and I read it again, and I read it a third time, and I was enthralled with it. And then I read The Lord of the Rings and thought they were very dry and dense, and as wonderful as The Lord of the Rings is, I think that The Hobbit is actually a better book, better novel. Now the movies, it's completely the reverse. The Lord of the Rings movies are miles better than the Hobbit movies, but the Hobbit book, for sure, it's probably the one book growing up that captivated my imagination the most. Taught me life lessons that are still valuable, like small people can do great things. All it takes is for one good person to do the right thing, and it can change the course of history. Nothing is more important than having a band of brothers. You learn that all through The Hobbit. So The Hobbit's a big deal, and to this day, I intend fully to read it to my son when he's old enough to grasp it.
There you go, passing the torch on to the next generation, folks. It's very, very, very important. Remember to breathe. Very important. Wax on, wax off. Show me sand the floor. Anyway, sorry, now I'm going back to the 80s again. I don't know why. It seems like I got this 80s itch. I just need to scratch back here. I don't know what's going on because the 80s were so flipping good. So many great movies and books came out during that time. Gosh darn it. But anyway, Dutch Star Wars guy says, I give all the credit to OG Terminator. It's a great film, no doubt, but it's just that T2 is better, laugh out loud. Well, to each their own. To each their own, okay? Hey, we're cool, man. We're cool. You can be in the T2 camp. I'll be in T1's camp over here on the other side of the studio. It's cool. It's fine. Thomas's writing journey says, I love the Lord of the Rings movies.
Who doesn't?
I mean, it's a solid
Yeah.
trilogy, right? I mean, do we all agree it's a solid trilogy, right?
There's two kinds of people in the world: those who love Lord of the Rings and those who are wrong.
Whoa.
I was gonna go with those who haven't seen them.
Yeah, because there are a group of
They're
people out there
wrong.
who have not seen them, Brina. So yeah.
Excuse me, they have no excuse. It's
Well, they
the
kind of
streaming.
do because they're 3-hour movies. I mean, the theatrical cuts alone are 3 hours, and that's a commitment, man.
Okay,
Yeah.
make the commitment. Okay, do the responsible thing.
It
Man
is.
up.
Okay, I mean, listen, I finally got around to seeing the extended cut of Fellowship of the Ring not too long ago, and I freaking love that movie. So, Fellowship of the Ring is my favorite out of the trilogy, just so everybody's aware. Fellowship is my personal favorite. I mean, I don't know, just real quick around the table here. David, what's your favorite of the three?
It
Movie-wise,
was
not the
Fellowship
books, but the movies.
Yeah, it was the Fellowship at first, and then when I saw the extended editions, Two Towers took it over for me. It's just such a. I mean, I still think those battles are still the best fantasy battles that we've seen on screen in a very long time.
Oh,
100%.
easily. Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
Easily, yeah.
What about
easily.
What about you, Brina? What's your favorite of the three?
It's so hard to choose. I like them all for different reasons. I'm horrible with picking favorites.
I mean, if you had to, just
I had to.
if you had to, I mean, just for argument's sake, would you go with Fellowship, the Two Towers, or the Return of the King, where it says, "There may be a day come when the courage of men fail, but it is not this day."
See, it's like I feel like the last one has some of my favorite moments, but then the first one I just like the kind of brighter tone. So probably a toss up between those two, first and last.
Okay.
But then, no, don't ask me to pick favorites.
She's like, wait, no, I'm not going that way. No, it's
too
cool.
hard.
It's fine. It's okay. It's okay. What about you, Frank? What's your favorite of the three?
I gotta go with Return of the King. I think it's just a great. It's a perfect trilogy, yes, but I think trilogies can be very much undermined if it doesn't really land on a triumphant finale. And I think Return of the King is just one of the best third films in a trilogy, which I don't know if you can say with a lot of trilogies. Godfather 3. But I think I think Return of the King is just wonderful. But yeah, they're all, to Brina's point, they're all you experience each film differently, especially if you've rewatched them over the years. They bring up different memories, they bring up different emotions. But yeah, I gotta go with the third.
Fair enough. Dutch Star Wars guy says this is a bold statement he's about to make. I'll watch all extended editions every single year in one day. One day. And I know that they're 4 hours or so each. I adore all 12 hours that I am watching that particular day. Case, you got more guts than brains, my friend. Because 12 hours, man, that is... I mean, but that's not even counting the hours you have to take between, having dinner or having, having meals in between, taking bathroom breaks, also known as commercial breaks for those of you watching us at home, and all that other stuff. So, I mean, that's like a 14, 15-hour day, bro.
No, man, you have to watch that as you're eating.
I guess.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, the first 3 movies, right?
I guess, yeah. I mean, if you could, you could pull it off. Yeah, I think you could do it. I mean, it's just I choose not to because I had a hard enough time just watching 3.5 hours of Fellowship of the Ring extended cut, and that's my favorite of the bunch, folks. So I just well done, Case. Well done, man. I got to give credit where credit's due. Goodness gracious! Once again, this is the Writer's Showcase here on And I Quote channel. Don't forget to like and share this with everyone you know, and including all your fellow readers or fellow fans. And if you watch us live or on the replay, thank you for doing that. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments of the chat. Dutch Star Wars guy, yeah, that's a good day watching Lord of the Rings. Yeah, it is, isn't it? One ring to rule them all. Anyway,
Oh,
by the way,
man.
the opening like monologue by Kate Blanchett's character, just awesome storytelling. Awesome storytelling, in my humble opinion. I mean, that's Galadriel, I think is her name. The character
Yeah.
Galadriel, is that it? Yeah,
Underrated actress too. She's wonderful.
she's good, isn't she? Doesn't she have a new
Everything
movie
she's
coming
in,
out
she's just great.
called Black Bag with Magneto
Yeah,
himself, Michael
Michael
Fassbender?
Fassbender. Yeah, I'm trying to
Yeah,
see that.
Magneto's in it.
Looks good.
Yeah. I think of him.
He's
Magneto.
also just like part of that trailer. The reason why I want to watch the movie is that he is so impeccably dressed
Yeah,
in that
I know,
entire
right?
film with like the turtleneck and the glasses and
Turtleneck,
the
yeah.
suit. This is perfect.
That's very true. And then Dutch Star Wars guy says, "I'll even have breakfast, levensies, lunch, afternoon tea, dinner, and supper during the movies." So that's great, Case. That's great. What about second breakfast? I don't think he knows about second breakfast pit. Anyway, I do have a question or two here from our friendly neighborhood production notes. So I'll toss this one over to David first to give everyone else a little bit of time to breathe. You're all going to be okay. We're going back to the Shire. Everything's going to be peaceful. It's fine. David, how do you interact with your fans?
Yeah, that's the best. Interacting with your fans is one of those real pleasurable things that you get to do as a creator. So when I really want to interact with fans in person in conventions, spaces like that, it's a great feeling to have someone pick up your book, look through it, say, "Yeah, I like the sound of that. I want to buy this one." And it's so cool because essentially they're buying you. They're buying your idea, and no one can pitch it better than you, or that's the way it's supposed to be. So yeah, I love going to the conventions. I love the fact that we have social media. This wouldn't be happening right now if we didn't have the social media network. And every time you do something like this, you just connect with more and more people, and we just expand the ideas. It's a great thing. Last year, I went to talk to kids in the elementary school about writing and things like that. And I write dark fantasy and gothic fantasy. So none of the kids were going to read my work, but they were fans because I had them create a little poem or a short story, and then I put all their short stories and poems into one book. And when I did go back to the school, I was able to give everybody a copy of that book. You should see their eyes light up. You should just see. I think that's how I like to interact with my fans. I want to be a part of it. I want to be a part of the fun. I like getting questions from them sometimes on Instagram, so certain comments. It's a great thing, and I haven't reached the peak. I don't think I'll ever reach the pinnacle that so many others have reached, where they have, they go somewhere and there's just a flock of fans everywhere. But I do like those little moments that I get where I find myself smiling that day, and they say, "Wow, I guess what I'm doing really matters to me and to the world," and it's just a lovely experience.
David for president. No, I'm just kidding. But that was a great answer to the question, though. I'm not going to lie. It's a great answer to the question. I wasn't going to go in a different direction there, but it was great anyway. Brina, considering that you've won so many accolades in a very short period of time of the beginning, early stages of your wonderful and illustrious career as a writer, how do you interact with your readers or fans on social media or outside of social media if you see them at book signings or conventions? How do you do it?
I don't really interact with them outside. It's mostly online. But yeah, I love hearing getting a little DM or a little comment or reading reviews and just seeing the different things that people liked, that sometimes it's completely unexpected. Some line I wrote and just hearing the feedback I love. I like getting kind of DMs. I had someone recently tell me that they were going to read my book and then they were going to share it with their daughter. And so it was just like this fun knowing that my book is like bringing dads and daughters together. And I don't know, it's just really cool to hear how your book is affecting people in ways that you didn't expect. You just I wrote it for me, and then it's having this effect out there. And so, yeah, I'm very shy, but I love hearing how people are enjoying it, and the feedback and that kind of thing. So
They have chosen wisely. So that's just great. Cue the John. Are you there? Yeah. Cue the Raiders theme. Anyway, uh, oh goodness gracious, Frank, how do you interact with readers or fans of yours? Because you've written how many stories now? 50 billion, 50,000, something like that, or whatever it is. So, how do you interact with them? How do you make time to interact with the millions and millions of your fans out there, Frank? I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, it's quite easy because it's never more than just a handful of the few and the proud. I think I get more love for my nonfiction than I do for actual fiction. But I think to echo the points earlier, like a lot of my stuff is online. People who find either my collection or they find the Substack, the magazine, and they find one of my articles that I've written that talks about the pulps and the pulp writers of yesteryear. A lot of people are always sending nice emails or making nice comments. I get to be a part of something like this where people ask great questions and want to know the whole process of everything. So it's nice when it does happen. I think I definitely get more love for the nonfiction stuff just because that's where most of my attention gets drawn to. But I think in terms of just fans, it's always nice when you publish a story that you're not 100% confident in. You're like, this sucks. Who the hell's going to read this? And then somebody comments or somebody privately messages you saying like, this is one of your best, or this is one of my favorite of yours, or this is something that I found haunting. So, it speaks to the effect of that what I'm trying to do. So those are always nice and they're always appreciative. I try to respond to every comment I get and every private message. Like I said, they're not that many. But when they do happen, it's always nice. It's always nice and reassuring.
Cool stuff, man. Very nice. Very nice. Sorry, there's another pop culture reference. I don't know if I should have made that one. But anyway, Grayson, how do you interact with your fans or your readers of the things you've published? How do you interact with them?
Well, first off, I understood that reference, and you should be ashamed of yourself. I don't think I have fans. I've had a relatively low profile, still really under the radar. Yet, Brina says. Thank you, Brina. I've had an online presence with my writing for a few years now, and most of my stuff I had some short stories published on Amazon, and some people read those and really enjoyed them. And then I have most of my short stories and things published on my Substack. And other than that, everything is either written and waiting to be published or is being written. So I've kept a lower profile, but I can tell you there have been some cool things that have happened. I had a guy email me out of the blue. He found my stuff and just started picking my brain about writing. And I was able to share with the guy and really encourage him, tell him, this is something accomplishable for you. And he told me he really loved my work and would like to write similar things. But the most heartwarming thing that I think happened is I wrote a short story that featured a really cool character, kind of the love child of Zorro and Jack Sparrow. And he read it to his son. And that really that was really heartwarming for me because I don't want to avoid adult themes in my work, but I don't ever want my work to be inaccessible to a man and his son. I want them to be able to read it and enjoy it together. So that's a tricky balance sometimes. But for me, I think that's what it's all about, is creating something that everyone can enjoy. And when he told me that, I got to express to him my gratitude and my appreciation. So I guess the way I'd answer the question is just with profound humility and appreciation. If I ever do have fans, then I would just demonstrate incredible gratitude for them taking the time to read my stuff. And I remember Billy Crystal talking about how, maybe it wasn't Billy Crystal, somebody talked about how Robin Williams interacted with their fans, and it's something I'd like to take to heart if I ever do have people who know and love my work, which is that this is maybe a normal day for me, and it might be annoying to interact with this person, but to them it's a big day, and to them it's a milestone because they got to interact with someone they look up to and that's influenced their life. So keep that in mind and make it special for them. That's if I had fans, that's probably how I would try to approach it.
Right on, man. Right on. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to all our panelists for answering that wonderful question. Two things I want to share with you who may be watching or listening to this from the comfort of your own home, and then we'll. The second thing is a next question, because we all love questions, right? Q&A. It's one of the best things about life. But there is one thing I forgot to share with you earlier. I want to bring this up now, if I have opportunity to do so. Let me see if I can find it here. Share. Can we share our screen here, John? Yeah, I think we can. So someone was asking about, this is one of my favorite books, but it's not my all-time favorite. I just want to make that perfectly clear, all right? So Brina kind of cheated and said, well, this is one of my favorite books, but it's not like my number one kind of thing. So this is one of my favorite books, and this is brought to you by our good friends at Great Illustrated Classics. Look at this one. You see this? So Charles Dickens, one of the greatest of all time, one of the absolute greatest of all time. He is one of the GOATs, okay? One of the GOATs. So I had to write a book report. And I'm not really big on writing papers in school, okay? I didn't really care for them. I just wanted to go to school, listen to our lectures, go to recess, play on the monkey bars, pretend I was the Red Ranger at recess, fight off the putty patrollers like they do in Angel Grove on Fox Kids every single afternoon, 3:30 Eastern Standard Time on Fox 45, Fox Kids, baby, all right? But when I was in elementary school or middle school, I had to write a book report. So I wrote a book report on this. And I got to tell you, Great Expectations is a solid story. Okay, it is a solid story about a young boy who finds out dark truths about his past, dark truths about his family, but then suddenly he has a mysterious benefactor who's floating him all this money for him to go to, a prestigious school and learn how to become a gentleman. And it's a fascinating story to me. It's fascinating stuff. And the way it was illustrated by Great Illustrated Classics, hashtag not a sponsor of this program, but if they want to be, give me a call, is really well put together. Now, if you're in middle school, elementary school, whatever it is, and you need a really good version of a story that you want to get through, and maybe illustrations would help you understand what's going on within a particular story, check out this series of books. Okay? This is good for the munchkins out there. This is good for the kiddies, but it's also good for adults. Okay? It's okay to read books that have pictures in them. Okay? So don't let Gaston come up to you and say, how can you read this? There's no pictures. No, we can read books with pictures. Just some people, outside of that like to use their imagination. It's okay. It's no problem. But this is a great story. And if you want to get into classic literature, this to me is a good jumping off point to a certain degree. I mean, I know some people on this panel may have another title in mind, and that's fine. But it's just for me personally, Great Expectations is a solid story. So, and unfortunately, no, I did not pick this up at a Scholastic book fair. Okay. I had to get this through other means. All right. I had to get it through other means. It's called parents buying me stuff. So they took care of it. And I didn't get it at Scholastic Book Fair. But I will say this. When I was at Scholastic Book Fairs, when I was a youngin', we had things that we got, such as the Boxcar Children, right? Boxcar Children was a series of books. The Hardy Boys. We also had Animorphs, where kids can transform themselves into animals, which was a hit television series on Nickelodeon on Snick, brother. So good stuff. If you haven't seen it before, if you don't know what Animorphs is, check out K.A. Applegate's stories, and you can find them in secondary bookstores because they're really cool. And the covers are great, too. I'm not going to lie. They're some of the best covers in book history, in my humble professional opinion. So with that out of the way and my memory going haywire, we'll go on to question number 5,442. David, favorite characters you've written?
Oh, wow. Well, to save time, I'll say one that has been really important to me recently in the last 2.5 years. I'll be finishing a trilogy this year, and then I'm going to take a break. But I'm going to choose this character called Valentis Grice. Valentis is a necromancer. He's really essentially the only necromancer in the realm. And the question that every reader kind of has to answer for themselves is this character a villain or not? Certainly he can be seen as an anti-hero, but he was born with these abilities. And what he does with them is he used them for good, I guess you could say. He would raise the dead and ask them questions to try to find out, who killed you, or what did you see, or maybe raise the dead of the murderer himself to find out why he did this, or where did he hide the body, or all that. So there's a lot of uses in being a necrotic detective. But what happens to him is he gets into some shenanigans, and they want him to assassinate someone who's a head cultist in a very dark, forbidden place where it's essentially death everywhere. And they figure we may as well send him. And he goes there, and the head cultist is already dead, and the person who killed him is now the head. And she's a priestess, and her power is she can touch you or do anything as far as spitting or whatever, and she can give you any plague, any virus she wants. And something happens, and while he should fear her, they sort of fall into this love, and it's not good for the realm, essentially. And eventually she starts to go mad. She starts to lose her mind. And he leaves her. He leaves. And he goes off to his homeland to see his family. And as he was going on his journey, they died. His parents are gone. So he snaps and he turns the whole city that he was born in into his town. He resurrects the dead. If anyone doesn't agree, kills them, makes them the undead. And he's stopped. He's thrown into a prison. And as the story goes, 3 years later, he's summoned to help them, to help people go back to this land to stop an evil force. And he's learned, who he is and why he did that and why he snapped. And he's trying to better himself. But the truth is, he hates everyone. He hates everyone until he says, maybe I don't hate this person. And his idea is, imagine loving someone or calling someone a friend when you hate everyone, because you feel that they judge you, they set you up to fail since the beginning because you're a necromancer sort of thing. So he's a very complex figure, and it's a very dark world, as we discussed out there. And sometimes a dark figure who's on a redemption arc is the kind of character you can relate to the most, to say, what would this Valentis do in this dark world? Would he take it to them? Would he say, you can't stop me, I'm going to do what I'm going to do? And when he does do the right thing, you feel a certain way and say, wow, Valentis really did something good. So if I've already rambled, but to me, he's just a really inspiring and complex figure that I really like right now.
Well, two things. One, those are some images going to keep me up tonight. And door number 2 would be...
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Yeah, that's
Classy choice with the
I know, right?
with the Jaws reference.
We're gonna need a much bigger boat, fellas. Just out of curiosity, though, Grayson, favorite characters you've written?
That's like asking me to choose my favorite child, man. That's hard.
Sorry.
That's what I was going to say.
I know, right? Brina's like, I'm sick of the F word. I'm sick of the F word favorites. Why? Just,
if I had to choose a favorite, it would come down between. I have an unpublished novel and several short stories that feature one character. His name is Gamel. He's the sword and sorcery character, and he'll actually be featured in a magazine soon. One of his stories got accepted to a magazine, and I wrote a novel as a sort of prequel to all those short stories. And hopefully that novel will eventually be published if I can raise the money for it, because I certainly don't have it in my pocket. But if I can raise the money, I'd love to have that published. But I like Gamel because Gamel's a very tortured individual. He's somebody who's experienced great loss, but perseveres through hardship, which I think is a sign of good character, and it's certainly a sign of true manhood. Someone who endures to the bitter end and refuses to let circumstances overwhelm them. So I really love Gamel. I like writing Gamel. I like the way he reads on the page. But I think if I had to choose out of all the characters I've written, between him and this other character, I would choose a character named Domingo Garavito. He is the love child of Jack Sparrow and Zorro, and he's so much fun. Like, writing him is fun. he's a thief in the Spanish Renaissance, and he goes on these crazy adventures through Renaissance Europe. And in every adventure, he encounters some crazy supernatural element that, he's a devout Catholic, so it has him questioning and challenging his faith, but also standing up for what he believes in some context. And he gets involved in duels and sword fights. He gets caught up with crazy cultists. He gets haunted by ghosts. He goes on a sailing ship and gets blamed for a murder he didn't commit, and then you come to find out it's some horrible monster that did it that's loose on the ship. Kind of like that third act of Dracula where he's loose on the ship. It's a lot like that. And he's actually serialized for free on my Substack. You can go to my Substack, click on Domingo Garavito stories, and there are 3 up right now, and I plan a lot more. And one day I'd like to compile those into a volume and release them as like a narrative. The Adventures of Domingo Garavito. He's just so much fun. He's so much fun to read and to write. I love Domingo. Yeah.
Wow. My goodness gracious. Well, if you were waiting for the opportune moment, mate, that was it. So, and you took it. So, very good, mate. What do you say to 3 shillings? And we publish all the stories. Welcome to Port World, Mrs. Smith. Anyway, Brina, your favorite word in the alphabet. Favorite characters. Favorite, I'm saying it in bold letters, folks. Favorite characters you've written.
Yes. My most hated thing, picking favorites. Okay, I won't complain about it. I'll just dive into one that I'm currently writing the most. So there she is, Verona. So I would say the reason she's my favorite is just because she's one of those characters that I have so many ideas for her. I don't think I'll ever get tired writing her. She's so fun to write. She's like snarky and I can kind of picture her in so many different locations and genres and stories, and just it's one of those kind of what Jason was saying. She's just so fun to write, and so I'll go with her as my favorite. I like all my characters when I'm writing them, but yeah, her I keep getting new ideas for new stories. I keep getting new plots and new scenarios, and so, but she goes hand in hand with her dog. So they're one character, I say. Those are my 2 favorites. Because they're glued at the hip.
I got you. By the way, Thomas's writing journey says, Morona is simply the best. Better than all the rest. Anyway, sorry, that's Tina Turner. Has anyone heard that song before, You're the Best by Tina Turner? If you haven't heard it before, look it up on YouTube. It's a really good song, Brina. I think you'd like it a lot. Honestly, sorry about that. My inner karaoke-ness was coming out there. I'm cool. I'm fine. Frank, favorite characters you've written?
Yeah, I mean, it's always hard to pick a favorite character you've written, especially since your primary mode of genre is writing short stories. But in this nice little collection called Grind and Other Strange Stories, there is a gentleman by the name of Mr. Kevin Anker, who shows up to work in his 9-to-5 cubicle. He's the oldest gentleman on the sales floor. And he's kind of a cranky old man. He hates the new crop of youth that have started with the company. He always detests the new startup-looking style of how they're trying to become more of a modern company. And the conflict with him is that he loves to work. He'll work on the weekends. He'll be the first one in the office and the last one to leave. And he always loves working, but he can't keep up as he's getting older and he's aging. And he gets passed up for what should be his own promotion as the director by his manager, who passes him up for someone younger. And so he basically makes a deal with his manager, saying, "Look, if I can wow you, if I can deliver will the promotion, will you reconsider? Will the promotion be mine? And he says yes. And because these are little dark, twisted Twilight Zone stories, he goes to the extreme, finding a doctor who will sever his fingers and his hands to give him some sort of cyberpunk enhancement, just so he can type faster, and slowly but surely loses his humanity over time. And, you know, when you write short stories, you don't spend a lot of time with each character. It's just kind of a one and done unless they become a recurring character. Kevin Anchor is one that I think is the most voicey. He's the loudest character. He has the most personality, especially that in that book. Yeah, I'd say he's definitely someone who has stuck with me. It's also from the story Grind, which is the title of the collection.
Good stuff. Wow. Everybody answered that question so well, even though I know some of you hate that word F for favorite, but we ask it anyway. And honestly, since you all came out of it on the other side as a world champion, I mean, you know.
Yes! That's awesome!
You're all doing an awesome job, so there's no shame in that. But we need to open a few more cases of champagne. Will that be all right? Oh, sure. Go ahead. Open what? Six? I guess 6 is good. So here's your sixth and final question, even though that's not correct because we got questions from the chat that came in early, but the hashtag, those are minorly don't count. David, because I want to make sure everybody gets a piece of this wonderful question that's going to be posed to the panel. David, what is one piece of advice you would give to aspiring writers who are watching or listening to this program right now?
Great. I would tell them to outline their work and not be afraid of writing stuff on the paper. I think a lot of people are afraid to start writing. They look at that blank page and they say, I'm going to write something stupid. It's not sounding right. It's not working good. Just go for it. And if you give yourself an outline, it gives you some courage because you're not just going in blind. You're going in with some sort of plan. And with an outline, you can erase it, you can change it, you can add something to it. But I would try to organize your thoughts a little bit so it's not so overwhelming. And I would just go for it, because if you want to write something, no one should tell you that you can't do that. That's what happened, I think, to a lot of us in this panel. People might have thought, you know, that they were sort of betting against us. And it's important to bet on you and to try your best and to give it all you got and to not be afraid to, like I said, to just sort of go for it.
Giddy up, man. Thanks for coming to David's TED Talk. I'm going to see myself out. Thanks. All right. Anyway, no, we're going to continue this extravaganza. That was a great answer, though. Grayson, one piece of advice you would give to aspiring writers out there, what is it?
Don't overthink things. Don't wait for inspiration. You're going to get stuck in your own head. Instead, just put your fingers on the keyboard, start telling a story. And if I could give you an assignment as someone who enjoys telling stories and would encourage you to do the same, take Lester Dent's story structure, go find it online, take it and write a story using that structure, write 6,000 words, and do not worry about what your story is going to be. Instead, look up something like a plot generator and just let that tell you what kind of story you're writing, and just write it. And what you'll learn is, for one, story is a matter of hard work. It is, you know, imagination, and it's fun and it's inspiration, but it's work. And if you're not willing to put in the work, then you're not going to write. The other thing you'll learn is you'll learn all the conventions of writing. You'll learn pacing through that story structure. You'll learn twists. You'll learn action. You'll learn suspense. You'll learn conflict. All of it is built into that structure. And you'll also learn how to take an idea, an abstract prompt from that prompt generator, and you'll learn how to flesh it out and turn it into something substantial. And nobody on the planet will ever take that same prompt and write that same story. So you don't have to worry about being too similar to anybody else. So don't wait for inspiration. Get a plan, work your plan. Simple as that.
Right on, man. Right on. Respect. Brina, piece of advice you would give to aspiring writers out there who want to go on this magical adventure known as writing?
Well, I would say great advice from everyone else so far. But I would say my number one thing is just start small, start with shorts. Because it helps you it helps you find what works as a hook and how to build to a satisfying conclusion, but it's small. And so it's kind of like if it didn't work, if what you tried didn't go the way you wanted it to, it was small, it was just a little short story, you didn't waste a ton of time on it, and you can practice and you can play and explore and just, you know, allow yourself to try new things, really go outside the box with just a short story. And then, you know, you'll find what works, not just in stories, but for you as a writer, you'll find what works writing something small like that. And my novel, I was trying to write a short story when I did it, and it just became a novel. So sometimes it'll be bigger than you expected it to be, and that'll be your first novel, is something that started out as a little short in your head, and then it was a full 400-page plus novel. So
it's a lot of pages. But I look forward to reading Morona Grant. No question.
It's
very
big.
excited to read it. I'm very, very excited to read it. Go on an adventure. Have the Raiders theme playing on repeat in my head while I'm reading the story. Because sometimes I'll try to imagine the scenes that are being played out in the words in my head. And I got certain music playing too in the back of my mind. Raiders March is probably the first thing that comes to mind when I look at that cover of yours for Morona Grant. With all due respect,
I listened to a lot of that, like
Yeah.
soundtracks when I was
Mhm.
writing it, so it's in there.
All right, well, nothing wrong with John Williams. He's only been the GOAT for like 95 flipping years of his life, or his career for that matter. Frank, piece of advice you would give to aspiring writers out there. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, all great points said all around. So especially Brina's, mostly because she's right. You know, short stories they don't take a long time, and you can complete them within a couple days, if not weeks, and you don't lose that much time. And it's all practice, which I think is the biggest theme that I would say to any aspirant who wants to leave the title of aspirant and try their hand at writing. Figure out what type of writer you want to be. If you just want to be a hobbyist, then yeah, you know, there's no shame in being a hobbyist if it's something that you do for pleasure, for fun. But if it's something you really want to take a crack at as like, no, this is what I'm drawn to. This is what I feel like I'm told to create. Well, the best advice I probably got was to follow the rules of Robert A. Heinlein, who wrote Starship Troopers and The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, Have a Spacesuit Will Travel, and a ton of other science fiction and military science fiction stories. And he has 5 business rules. I'll say them all now for any folks who want to leave the aspirant title and just get words on the page and maybe go into a publishing career. Number 1 is very easy, or very simple, is you must write. Rule number 2 is you must finish. Rule number 3 is you must not rewrite unless to editorial order. Number 4 is you must put it on the market. And number 5, you must leave it on the market until somebody purchases it. 5 little business rules of writing that he wrote, I think, in the 1950s, first in the back of a book. They're great. It's 5 simple rules. They're very hard to keep honest with your stuff and your work. But I think if you really want to go out there, be a professional writer, like the greats out there, I think those 5 business rules from Robert A. Heinlein will serve you very well and will serve you for a very long time.
Goodness gracious, you people are so smart, man. Such a great panel. I got to be honest. I got to be perfectly honest with you. The only thing I would add to it, because I took part in NaNoWriMo Remu some years back during lockdown. I wrote a 3,000-word short story. Never done it before. Never written anything longer than like a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 words, because I had to write you had to do papers for college and all that kind of stuff, and that's fine. But I never really wrote a story, and I had a couple of ideas in my head. And I had this idea for a Western, and I went ahead, did some sessions with my local library. Local libraries are good resources, folks. So make sure you check those out too. Support your local libraries and your communities too. They do a lot of great for mankind, and I think they're wonderful places to visit. And you can also find books you never thought you would find there. So it's an amazing place for sure. So because of that, I ended up writing a 3,000-word short story. And because of the network of people I know of who are independent writers and publishers, I went to a friend of mine and said, hey, would you mind taking a look at this for me? Give me some critiques, give me some honest feedback. And he did. And then I went back and did some, editing here and there. And then sure enough, he said after a few edits, he said, this this is good. This is good. And I finished it. I finished the story. So it's 2025. That last story I wrote was a couple hundred years ago. So I'm looking forward to writing something else, whether it's another Western, whether it's something maybe dive into another genre, depending on what happens. Finding the time to write for me personally is a struggle right now because I work a schedule where I work nights and then I sleep all day. So that's kind of rough, fellas. It's kind of rough. But once I do, if I have something, once I put something down on paper or in my computer for most, because I try writing freehand, dude, my hand just gets so achy after like 5 or 10 minutes. Plus, when you get a bit older, your muscles tend not to work as well as they used to when they were much younger. But anyway, I digress. Writing should be fun, period. Writing needs to be fun. If you got an idea in your mind, go for it. Doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. Doesn't matter if it's going to be the best thing since sliced bread or not. Just go for it and have fun with it. Let's see. Thomas's writing journey says, I love all the advice. My thanks to all of you. Heart emojis. There it is. Well, there it is. Thank you, Thomas. Appreciate you, man. So that's the best piece of advice I can give to people who are aspiring to be writers out there. If you have an idea of something's been roaming around in your head for a long time, don't let it go to waste and don't let it slip away. Just put it on paper, put it on your computer screen, whatever you got to do. And short stories are a good way to stretch your muscles, too. Your writing muscles are going to be very, very good to you if you do short stories, okay? They've been very, very good to me. So, see what happens. Well, on that note, I think this has been a very successful pilot episode of what is known as the Writer Showcase. So with that being said, if I had to sum this up in a one sentence, 2 sentences, maybe 1 or 2 words, it would simply be this.
Yes! Hell yeah! Hey, come on, baby! Come on! Yes! Come on! Ah! Yes! Yes!
So with that being said, thank you for joining us for the Writer's Showcase episode 1 on And I Quote channel. It has been a pleasure and an honor being here with this esteemed panel of guests and hearing from you who may be watching or listening to this episode from the comfort of your own home. Thank you to everybody who chimed in the chat. Thank you for everybody who's going to be chiming in the chat during the course of this replay of this episode. We will be back with another episode of the Writer's Showcase. I think, this went quite well. And I want to keep doing this. And I think Brina and David and Frank and Grayson would agree that I think we should keep this show going. So we're going to be back with another episode. We're probably going to do this as a monthly show, make it extra special for you, extra spicy. So we're going to have a new panel of guests. We're in the process of getting those names put together, putting some ideas together and all that kind of jazz. So the best thing I can tell you is stay tuned, more to come. That's all I can say without giving it away. And don't worry, we're not going to play favorites and say, oh, some of our favorite people, we're going to, no. We're all equals here, folks. We're all equals. And don't worry, Brina. I'll do my best not to bring up the F word for episode 2. It's probably going to happen anyway because it's just part of the script. But to each their own. David, if someone wants to know more about you or check out some of the wonderful things you got going on over there in your neck of the woods of New York, where can they follow you on social media? David V. Mamina.
Yeah, you can go on Instagram or Facebook or any online place. Just type that name in, David V. Mamina, and you'll find me there. My website, maminabooks.com, has all my stuff. All my books are there, and I've also created a card game as well that goes along with the books, just for fun. Usually when I'm at conventions, if some fans buy 1 or 2 books, they get the game that goes with the book too, just for fun. Everything is on there. Oh yeah, that's my latest, Death or Valentis Macabre Masquerade. Very cool. But yeah, you can find me online. Just throw my name in there and you'll find me. Thanks, guys. Honestly, this was such a great time. Seriously, as I'm listening to everyone talk, I'm just finding myself smiling because I myself was having a blast. It's really great to be in a pilot episode with writers like you.
It's a beautiful thing. We couldn't do this without writers like you. Don't you remember that PSA from PBS with viewers like you? Does anybody remember that? Anybody remember that? Yeah, Brina's smiling over there. She remembers some stuff. She remembers. But just out of curiosity,
yes.
Brina, if someone wants to know more about you and your accolades and the numerous awards that are going to be decorating that bookshelf of yours here pretty quickly, if not your mantle, where can they follow you on social media to keep up to date with all the wonderful things you're doing, including this one right here? Where can they follow you?
So yeah, it's right down there. Brina Williamson. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, I have other, like, a website, but I don't update it because I'm horrible at that. But yeah, mostly Instagram and Twitter. So yeah, just Rena Williamson on there. Obviously, my books are on Amazon, so you can find me there. Yeah, that's it. That's the main one.
Yeah, you put the cover together for this, right?
Yes, I did the cover art.
Bam!
And then,
Ridiculous.
yeah, I'm
I know,
working
that's
on
that's a
the
poster we
prequel
want to put on
here.
our walls.
There it is.
Yeah, see, there it is. There's another one right there. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's the prequel that I'm working on right now. So that should be out soon. And then the first one is becoming an audio drama. So that's where all the awards I'm getting is for the audio drama that's being made.
And that can be found on social media as well, on YouTube, on the
Yes.
Invictus. Is it Invictum YouTube
the
channel?
pilot episode is on YouTube, and we're gonna launch the Kickstarter to fund the rest of the episodes to get the whole novel made into a series. Yes. And that's the Kickstarter, I think, is launching start of next month.
Ooh,
so nice.
Yeah, if you wanna hear the book turned into audio play, then look for the Kickstarter and help us get it funded. So
that sounds like a wonderful idea, and we as a team and as a family, we're behind you 100%. So that is most certainly true. Grayson, just out of curiosity, if someone wants to know more about you and all the great things you got going on over there, where can they follow you on social media, Grayson?
You can follow me at Grayson D. Sullivan _author on Instagram. You can find me on Substack. Look for this logo right here. You'll know it's me with a little campfire. Isn't that cute, by the way? Anyway, you can find me on the Men's Adventure Fiction Discord. Awesome place where writers commune, and it's like a watering hole for adventure fiction writers. I've gotten to know all these guys on the Adventure Fiction Discord. And right now I actually have a brand new novella. It's out and available. It's called The Known World of Atera. Yeah, there it is. This is actually subtitled The Prisoner of Ruhak Tower. It features a prison escape. So that's a pretty intriguing sword and sorcery story. Look at that! Isn't that beautiful? I did that in Canva. It's actually, I got the price wrong though. It's not $6.99. It's only $5.99. So you're getting $1 off. Not really, but I wanted you to think that. But it was an accident. So, yeah. So that's out right now. That's available to you. I have plenty of stuff on my Substack for you to read. That's where you can find me. That's where you can find out more about me. And I've got a lot of projects that I'm working on that I hope to have published someday. And if you buy my book, maybe I can.
Giddy up. You're the man, Grayson. We love you to pieces.
I don't have a Brenda Williamson cover.
I know. I don't have a cover for my short story either.
What are you talking about?
Whatever. Man, I need illustrated covers in my life. We need to bring back painted, authentic covers.
Shouldn't we? I think we should. Yeah, that's a valid point Grayson just made here, folks. So let us know if you want to see that. Let us know in the chat, and let us know on social media too. Follow us along for that. But great stuff, Grayson. Congratulations. And yeah, I come prepared with graphics, son. So yeah, I got my graphics right here. Woohoo! And that's a great cover too. Sword and sorcery. Give me the sword. I like swords.
That's a picture of Frank T on the front. Yeah.
Oh, is that who that was?
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot who that was for a second. I apologize sincerely. But Frank, if someone wants to know more about you and the fact that you're a cover model or something for a book, just out of curiosity, if they want to find out more about you, where can they find you on social media, Frank?
If that's me for Grayson's cover, then we need to start talking back pay on royalties, sir. Anyway.
Nope.
Anywho, you can find me on Instagram. That's mostly where I hang out nowadays. It's just my name, Frank Theodat. I'm also the editor and founding partner of Pulp, Pipe, and Poetry magazine on Substack, the variety magazine of leisure and fiction, poetry, hymns, serialized fiction, nonfiction, Ink and Grit, which is just basically a series on the pulp writers of yesteryear from the pulp era. We're doing a series there, and a ton of other stuff with a couple other contributors on Substack. So you can find me on Substack as well. I also have my book, Grind and Other Strange Stories, which is a nice little short story collection of 5 strange stories with seemingly ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances and the events that they go through. So yeah, that's pretty much me.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you so much to all of you for being with us. My name is Ryan of Antiquote Channel. I don't have anything published because my resume pales in comparison to the 4 other people on this flipping stage right now that I am so, we're not worthy. We're not worthy. I am not worthy of being on this set, much less this stage. But I'm trying my best here. I'm trying my best. But if you want to know more about me and the chaos that ensues with my non-existent life, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RyanRPM5. Check us out on all forms of social media, simply at And I Quote Channel. That's where our content is, from everything we've done from the very beginning up to now. We got stuff for movie fans. We have stuff for DC fans, Marvel nerds. If you're into books or independent writing or publishing, we got interviews with some of the best indie writers and publishers in the world. 4 of them are already here right now in the studio, which is great. And then we got more that are on our playlist. So check it out. And the links to where you can follow all the guests that were on this episode of the Writers Showcase are featured in the description of this video down below. So check out those links. Click, 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 click. And give them a follow, because you're going to like the way you look after supporting or reading the books of these individuals. I guarantee it. With that being said, and I quotes on Saturdays, 12 p.m. EST. Movie watch-alongs are on every other second, third, and fourth Fridays of each month, respectively, at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then the Meaning of Fandom is going to be on the first Friday of each month at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And more than likely, the Writer Showcase will be on, I'm thinking, the second or third week of each month on a Saturday night, I'm thinking of. Since Saturdays seem to work for the first group here in the studio. Hopefully it'll work for the second group that comes in. So stay tuned. More details on when the next episode of the Writer Showcase, when that's going to drop, will be made available to you as soon as we can. But once again, this has been a great time. We hope you who may be watching or listening to this right now have enjoyed it. Also, we're on the road to 5,000 subscribers. That's right, 5,000. Can we get there before the end of the year? I think we can. Why? Because we have a team behind us that support us well. Once we do, we're going to throw a great big live stream celebration that will include returning favorites and special giveaways that you, our incredible viewers / subscribers, are going to be eligible to win. Also, we have merch. We have hats. We have shirts, hoodies, stickers you can add to your water bottles. We have coffee mugs, stationery, all that stuff. It's available right now. It's on sale. It's in my link tree down below. It's also in our social media bio. So check it out. Sorry, that sounded like something from the 90s or early 2000s. I'm sorry. But still, thank you all for being here. This has been a blast. Reading the experience has been wonderful. And we look forward to bringing you the Writer Showcase again in the near future. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Ring the bell to be notified when the videos go up or they go live. Remember, life is better when all you got to do is take a look. It's in a book. There's some great writers out there, but you don't have to take my word for it. Dun-dun-dun.
In the summer of 1953, private investigator Will Lucky Marks was working as the in-house private eye for Arcane Pacific Pictures. Trapped inside the studio with the killer, Lucky must find the killer before time runs out. Lot 28. Own it today. Available iTunes and Amazon.com.
Author Cindy Kep is writing on the edge. Books include Remnant in the Stars, The Loudest Actions, Lines of Succession, Mindstorm, Condemned Courier, the Yerushalayim series, and Animal Eye. Find author Cindy Kep at CKOEPP.com today.
Choose high-flying action. Choose death-defying escapes. Choose spine-tingling thrills. Choose nail-biting intrigue. Now's your chance to choose the adventure. The Captain Hawkland Adventures. Available on Amazon.com. You've worked hard and written a great book. Now, it's time to give it a great cover. If you're an indie author or small press publisher, Plasmafire Graphics is your source for affordable cover illustration and graphic design. Plasmafire Graphics, when the look of your book matters to you.
All right, I'm a little tired, a little wired, and I think I deserve a little appreciation.